We All Died at Breakaway Station by Richard C. Meredith. So this book was a recommendation from a viewer named Robert, and when he first recommended this book, he was talking about how no one was really talking about this one. I had never heard of the book or the author, and I looked it up. It intrigued me a little bit. Come to find out, Richard Meredith died when he was like 41, so he only got a chance to write a small handful of novels. But I eventually found this one, read it, and here we are. So I have this Ballantine paperback, first edition for the U.S. It's got cover art by John Berkey, and it was copyright 1969. And if you want to pause there and read the back. But I would call this like a space opera with a lot of military science fiction elements to it. When I first started reading this, the prologue and the beginning of the book was just completely captivating. The writing style is kind of unique. The concepts that Meredith throws out are really cool. And there's just kind of this tone of desperation and doom surrounding this book that just kind of had me hooked right away. Now, as I got into the book a little further, there was a part that kind of slowed down, and we focused a little bit more on some characters and some of their interpersonal issues. And that's where the writing felt a little bit more dated. The beginning of the book felt way ahead of its time as far as the writing goes. But overall, I really like this one. So let's just kind of get into the setup and the plot a little bit. So in the future, humanity has spread out past the solar system, and we've made it 40 light years past Earth and to a world called Paladine. And in this future, we have faster than light travel that's, Meredith kind of makes an effort to describe how this works, but it's basically a series of micro jumps that these ships make to travel through space. And we also have faster than light communication, which I think he does a really good job explaining how that whole system works. And it basically takes, when they set up this network, basically about every 4 light years, they built a station, and that's where we get this concept here, this breakaway station. And they had to project these light beams from one station to the next. So it took like 4 years they had to wait for light to travel to this continuous flow to get to the next station. And then once all the stations were connected through these light beams, then the way he kind of describes it is the information is kind of like superimposed across this network, and it happens almost instantaneous. And you come to find out that these stations are super important. If any one of them were to go down, humans would have to go back, rebuild it, and then they'd have to start over with this system of light. So you would have another 4-year wait before you could set up this communication network. Now, there's also aliens in this book called the Gillies, and they're kind of these insectoid-like creatures, and they have this interesting ability to eject their gastrointestinal system if they need to. And so he goes into them a little bit as you read through the novel, but I don't want to spoil too much about that. And then we also we find out that these aliens were fairly peaceful at first, or just kind of indifferent to humans. But then something happens, something flipped inside of them, and they just decided to start hunting down and killing humans all over the galaxy. And so when you start off this novel, we've got our main cast of characters are in this fleet of 3 ships that are out at this furthest reach that humanity has made it to, out here at Paladine, 40 light years from Earth. And if they were traveling, it would take weeks to get back to Earth through this faster than light travel. But they were involved in a battle with these aliens, and we found out most of our characters have either died or just been horribly disfigured and brought close to death. But there's also this technology that can bring people back from the dead in a way, and they use plastics and ceramics and metal to reconstruct kind of their body as long as parts of their organs and their brains are still working. they can revive them up to a certain point and kind of bring them back to life. We find out most of the main characters have died or gotten close to death, and they are a ragtag group of people with all kinds of body modifications just to keep them alive. And they made it through this battle just barely, and they eventually are going to try to get back to Earth, where they're going to get full body reconstructions, and there's technology to regrow parts of their body and kind of, turn them back into real humans again. So we find them as they're approaching Breakaway Station, which it's about 2/3 of the way between Earth and Paladine. So it's 27 light years from Earth and only 13 light years from Paladine. So they've made it as far as Breakaway Station, and they're just going to stop through and on their way through, but they kind of find out there's been some other things happening around there, and they decide to stick around in case these aliens, these Jillies, decide to attack this station. They wanted to stay there and defend it. So that's kind of the setup of the novel. I don't really want to talk too much more about the plot. You will, if you read this book, you'll get a lot of military space battles happening, and a lot of this whole novel takes place out in space. But there are a few other elements he throws into it. There's kind of a chapter or a scene that takes place near Earth where some humans have captured one of these aliens, and they're kind of trying to interrogate the alien to figure out why they're trying to exterminate humans. And I thought that was done pretty well. And then there's this also kind of random chapter thrown in where they're back on Earth. There's a human that sympathizes with these aliens in a way and feels like he's someone who can help bridge this gap between the Jillies and the humans and try to make peace between them. And he's modified his body so that he almost looks like one of these alien creatures, even to the point where he has kind of a removable gastrointestinal system. And there's some things that happen in this chapter that it was done pretty interesting and pretty well too. So, but most of the book takes place around this station and the idea of defending this station. Now, if you read the prologue in this book and you even just look at the title, you know some bad things are going to happen. This probably isn't going to be a happy ending kind of story, but not all stories have to have happy endings. But I guess let's just kind of go into some pros and cons here. So the pros for me, like in the beginning of this book, the writing style is so unique. It felt really ahead of its time. The way he describes some of the technology in this book, like there's even video chats happening, and the faster than light travel, the faster than light communication, and even our characters, what they've gone through in this battle where they've died and they've been reconstructed even before they make it to Breakaway Station. I thought all that was done really well, and there's just this tone to the book where there's this kind of impending doom at all times, And so I think he captured that really well. Like I said, some of the tech elements he threw in this one seemed really ahead of his time as well. So all of that was done great. And this book was only 244 pages. It was a very fast, easy read. It was fast-paced for most of it. When we get into the cons, I'll talk about the little bit of a slowdown. But I basically read this book in 2 days. So it could be a pro or a con. This isn't a real deep novel. It's not going to get into, what it is to be a human and things like that. It's kind of a surface level read in a way, but I think if you're wanting something like that, almost as a palate cleanser, then that's a pro, in my opinion. So now some cons for this one. The writing, when we got into some later parts of the book, it felt dated, especially around some of these relationships with our characters. And there was even this one character, he insisted on calling this girl baby every time he, talked to her. And it just, you kind of roll your eyes a little bit. But it was a product of its time. I don't think Meredith had any ill intentions with any of this or anything, but that part of the book just did feel a little bit dated. But other than that, I can't really fault the book for what it was trying to be, and it's a fun, fast-paced. Well, I don't know fun, but it's a fast-paced military book that just has this, sense of desperation to it in a way. And if you get a chance to find this one, I say pick it up and give it a read. So once again, thanks for the recommendation, Robert. And next up, I'm reading The Moon Pool by Abraham Merritt. So just look for that one coming out next. And once again, thanks for watching.